Good morning and welcome back to another Bake Off Box video. So we're already on Bake Off Box number 7, which is called Make a Declaration. I have to say that pun, I actually don't think it's that bad. Well done. So yeah, we're going to make eclairs today, and what we're going to make is passion fruit eclairs. So it's choux pastry filled with a passion fruit creme patissier, top decorated with meringues, and there's like a passion fruit curd that goes inside the eclairs, but it's also piped on top at the end. So hopefully we can make them look as pretty as in this picture. There's a lot of piping to do today, so actually the special equipment this month was 3 nozzles. 1 filling nozzle, which I think is really cool. I have one, but I don't think it's great, so I'm actually glad that I'm looking forward to try this and hoping this is a lot better. A small one with a star-shaped opening, which we're going to use for the meringues, and then one with just a plain, I believe that must be 1 centimeter diameter opening, and that's for the eclairs. And then that's why we also got 4 piping bags in this month's box, alongside some caster sugar and flour, which I will, I'll just quickly blend it in what was in this month's box. Okay, so let's have a quick look at the contents of this month's box. So we've got flour and caster sugar for the recipe. This month's box, interestingly, comes with a whole bag of a bonus ingredient. It's chocolate drops. So yeah, I suppose this is for making a different recipe. They suggest to make chocolate choux buns. Then there are quite a lot of piping bags, 2 large ones and 2 small ones, because we're going to do a lot of piping today. Then this month's piece of special equipment are 3 nozzles. Like I said, we're going to do a lot of piping. So we've got a filling nozzle, like this one. We have a small star-shaped nozzle, and we have a round one. And finally, we have some passion fruit curd that we're going to flavour the creme pat with. So yeah, those are the ingredients of this month's box. We've got a lot to do today. I think this will be quite technically challenging, which I think is good. We've got choux pastry to master, we've got creme pat to do, we've got meringues to make, we've got caramel to make. So that's going to be a bit scary, and I need to be careful I don't burn my fingers, because I already sliced the end of my finger off the other day. So yeah, I think we should just get started with the choux pastry. So before I even start, I am going to take a piece of baking paper and draw 10 12 centimeter lines on it with a pencil. Make sure they're quite thick so that you can see them later. And then we're going to first use the piece of baking paper to then weigh out our dry ingredients for the eclairs. So I've got 90 grams of plain flour, a teaspoon of caster sugar, and a 1/4 teaspoon of fine sea salt. And once that goes in to the choux pastry mix, we will then obviously use the baking paper to pipe the eclairs onto. Just make sure you place it on your baking tray with the pencil marks facing down, so that you're not piping onto the pencil. Now that we've got the dry ingredients for the choux pastry ready to go, we are going to weigh out 55 grams of unsalted butter, and then 65 mils of whole full fat milk and 65 mils of water, and that we are going to put in a pot and leave to melt. Now you want to first have it over a low heat so that the water doesn't start boiling before the butter is fully melted. But once everything's melted, we're going to bring this to a boil, and then we're going to shoot the flour mixture all in one go. And this is when you now want to beat this mixture really, really ferociously. This is a you snooze, you lose situation. So you want to beat it together until it comes together in a thick, doughy paste. And then we're going to return that to the heat, and we're going to cook it out for about 3-4 minutes until the flour, to cook out some of the rawness of the flour. I'd say that's leaving the sides of the pan clean, eh? Okay, so once the choux pastry is just warm, it's not hot at all anymore, just put it back into the pot or into a bowl, and then you gradually add 2 beaten eggs. Now you can do this by hand. I'm just going to do it by hand so that I don't have to dirty any more things and just use this wooden spoon, but you can also use an electric hand whisk, but I'm just going to put in some elbow grease. And yeah, so you want to add the egg a little at a time and beat until smooth. So I've been beating this and I've added all of the egg. Actually, next time I think I might use the electric hand because my arm hurts. But I have added 2 whole eggs. Now I know that choux pastry, normally they say, is ready when like it drops off a spoon like fairly easily. Like this is, I think, just too solid, and you know, it should drop off and form like a V shape. But this, it's just too thick, and I think I should be adding more egg. But the instructions don't say anything about this sort of trick and what the right consistency is. So I'm not sure, do I add a little bit more egg or do I not? Like, I don't think this is right. Ooh, tricky one. I think I'm gonna add a tiny bit more egg and see if I can get it to that dropping consistency, because this, I think, is just too thick for a choux. Maybe I'll add a tiny bit more. I feel a bit silly cracking open a whole egg, but oh well, maybe then I've scrambled egg for breakfast. Ah! No, I will add more egg. Okay, so I've added like probably not even half of another medium egg, maybe a quarter, but now I'm a bit more happy with it. It drops off the spoon a bit more readily and you get that sort of V shape when it drops. I don't know, maybe I do need I don't want to add too much more, but yeah, do you see what I mean? I think I might leave it now, but I think it did need a little bit more egg. Anyway, so now this is going to be spooned in a piping bag and piped onto our baking tray using the lines we did. And I'm also going to already preheat the oven to 180 degrees fan, 200 degrees Celsius. So about 160 for my rubbish oven, and I just need to hope that it doesn't burn the eclairs. So then just use the piping bag to pipe thin lines of eclair on your baking paper. Again, like if it doesn't work like I did, just scrape it off and try again. I actually had enough to make 1 spare eclair as well. And yeah, just try and make sure that that you keep the same amount of pressure on the piping bag, so that they don't end up thick at one end and thinner at the other. It takes a bit of practice, like you can see. I had a few whoopsies as well, but yeah, I got there in the end. And then a final tip is to dip your fingertip in a little bit of water to dampen it, and then you can sort of use that to push down the sticky up bits at the end of the eclair so that they don't burn. Okay, so while the eclairs are in the oven, we are going to make the little meringue kisses. So for that, you need to separate a large egg, crack the egg white into a large clean mixing bowl, and reserve the yolk because we will need the yolk for the creme pat, which we'll be making next. Now, you need to use an electric whisk to make meringue, like it's impossible to do it by hand. I'm actually going to use my Kenwood, so I've cracked the egg white into that bowl, and we're going to whisk it for like 2 or 3 minutes until it's foamy on a low speed, and then we're going to increase the speed, and then we're going to add 60 grams of caster sugar, about a tablespoon at a time. So you don't want to add all the caster sugar at once because that will deflate the meringue. So yeah, you want to then whisk that for about 4 to 5 minutes until the meringue is white, shiny, glossy, and forms very stiff peaks. You might have seen that I only bought this Kenwood quite recently, so this was the first time I've actually used this smaller mixing bowl, and as you can see, just adding one egg white wasn't enough for the mixture, you know, to come high enough so that the whisk could catch it. So yeah, I actually had to hold the bowl up a little bit. In hindsight, I should have probably just put a dish towel underneath rather than holding it for 5 minutes. But yeah, so that's good to know. If you're making tiny amounts, then this mixer is almost too big to handle the small amounts. So yeah, that was interesting. So the eclairs have barely had like 25 minutes. You were meant to keep them in for 30, but I'm going to take them out because mine are looking very golden brown already. I'm telling you, this oven's a mess. We're going to take them out of the oven. We're going to pierce them from either end with a cocktail stick to let out some of the steam, and then we're going to return them to the oven again for 5 minutes, or maybe less in my case, and just to make sure they dry out and they're crisp and they don't get all soggy. Okay, so I've got the eclairs out and they're now on a wire rack cooling. The meringue is also ready. It's stiff. Should we do the ultimate test? Woo! It's not falling out. Right, okay, so that's stiff. We're going to put this into the piping bag, and now the one fitted with a star nozzle. I've turned down the oven temperature to 100 degrees fan, so 120 degrees normal oven, meaning like 80 degrees my oven. And I'm going to pipe small rosettes, or like star-shaped kisses as they call them, onto a piece of baking paper. As you can see, you can use a little bit of the meringue to stick down the paper, make sure it doesn't slip. I also did the same earlier with the choux buns. And yeah, just pipe loads of meringue kisses, and then we're going to bake them for about 40 minutes until they are dried out and crisp. And then what you do is you just switch off the oven and cool them in the oven to prevent them from cracking. While the meringues are in the oven, we are going to make the passion fruit creme pat. So to do that, you need 3 large egg yolks, and then you add some caster sugar, whisk that together, and then you add a bit more flour and then whisk it until it's a thick paste. And then in a separate pan, we're going to add 125 grams of double cream, 125 milliliters of whole full fat milk, and now we're going to warm that until it's almost boiling. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pour the warm milk on into like the egg mixture, whisking continuously, so just like when you're making a normal custard. Then pour the mixture back into the pan, whisk for 4 to 5 minutes until smooth and thick. And the mixture no longer tastes floury, is what the Bake Off box instructions say. It's thick, we're going to pass the creme pat through a sieve just to get out any lumps, and then we're going to stir in 20 grams of butter until that's melted and 100 grams of the passion fruit curd. And then make sure you cover it with cling film so that the cling film is over the surface, just to make sure that no skin forms, and then we're just going to chill that until we need it later. Okay, so the eclairs have cooled, the meringue kisses have been ready for a while and been cooling in the oven, the creme pat has been chilling in the fridge. So now it's time to make the caramel for like the caramel topping. And for that I have weighed 100 grams of caster sugar into a small pot. I'm going to place that over a low heat now, and we're going to melt the sugar and then sort of cook it until it becomes this like golden ambery colour. And I've also got a bowl ready here that with cold water in it, I'm going to plunge the pot into once the caramel is done to cool it down and prevent it from heating any further and burning. And then we're going to just dip the top of each of the eclairs in the caramel, drip off some of the excess and place on a wire rack to harden. So that will take about 10 minutes. If the caramel hardens, and that does happen quite quickly, you can just return it to the heat and then just warm it gently to make it more liquidy again. Okay, so the caramel on the eclairs has set. That one takes like 10 minutes or so. This was the first time I properly made caramel that I can remember, and there's a few things I learned. First of all, I wouldn't put it in that bowl of water which I've seen before to stop the cooling, because it wasn't that much, it just went hard again immediately. So I'd skip that bit. I definitely think I needed more caramel, so I will change that in the recipe because I ended up making extra. So instead of using 100 grams of sugar, I think maybe use 150. And just like you really have to heat it, but then take it off and like swirl it around. It's difficult. It was an interesting experience. Anyway, I have now filled my passion fruit creme pat into my piping bag, fitted with my filling nozzle. Can I squeeze it? Oh, there it comes. And now we're going to take each of the eclairs and fill them. So you know those steam holes we created earlier, we're going to use them to insert the tip of the piping bag, and then we will fill it here from one side until we feel a bit of resistance because the cream's probably coming out again, and then we're going to fill it from the other side as well until we start to see some cream coming out that initial side. That means it's completely full. So yeah, that's what we're going to do next. Okay, so now it's time for the final stage of decorating. So we're going to use the leftover passion fruit curd which I've filled into this piping bag here. I'll snip off the end and we're going to use that to stick on our mini meringue kisses, and also just decorate with some extra little dots of that. And we're also going to use the leftover creme patissier, to dot that on top as well. As an idiot, so I made a spare eclair and I filled that eclair, and then I thought, oh no, I was going to use the spare filling to decorate. So I actually cut open the spare eclair at the bottom and scraped out the creme pat, because I'm a perfectionist and I want it to look like the picture. So yeah, don't do that if you're making a spare eclair and you'd rather fill an extra eclair rather than have the extra creme pat dots on top. But yeah, so we're going to decorate it with the passion fruit drops, the creme pat drops, and I also have some fresh mint. So this is the final stage, time for decorating. so I have decorated my eclairs. 5 of them I've got on this nice little plate that I have. It's almost the colour of the Bake Off box stuff, but it isn't from the Bake Off box. I think I bought it from Lidl at some stage. So yeah, those are my eclairs. The rest are still down here. I'll take some nice pictures for you, but I won't. I'll take these to a friend's house later. So, but what I thought is I would try the individual components. So the first thing I thought was like, I don't think I've ever had passion fruit before. Like, I'm not sure if I have or not. So I squeezed some of the curd and reserved it on this teaspoon. So I'm going to try that first. It's nice. I don't know if I've had it. It reminds me of like smoothies, you know, like innocent smoothies, like the yellowy ones. They might have passion fruit in it. Because I've definitely tasted it before, but I don't know if I've ever had a passion fruit. No. That's nice though. Okay, then there's obviously gazillions of these little meringue kisses left. They'll be great on top of ice cream, or you can probably put them in a Tupperware and they'll probably last for quite a while, and you can use them to decorate cakes and stuff. And then what I'm going to try is like I said, I scraped out the creme pat from that one eclair, then I ended up having too much after all. So I've squeezed it back into this wrecked eclair shell, and I'm going to try it like this. I'm just going to have a bite, and then like I said, the rest I'm going to take to friends. So I think I'll put a meringue kiss on top, and I'll have the eclair upside down, caramel below. Oh my god, it's sticky. Wow, the caramel makes it like super crunchy. Wow, it's like normally, you know, it can be dangerous with the eclair shells, it can go a bit soft, but wow, the caramel layer makes it really nice and crunchy. And that passion fruit creme pat, ooh, I really like these actually. I said I don't have a bite, but yeah. Oh, these are good. Okay, well, as always, the recipe will be on my blog, so please do give it a try. It was quite demanding, which I think is good, because I like a bit of a challenge. Although yeah, this probably took me 4 or 5 hours to do. But yeah, it was super fun. I think they taste great, really. And I'm not sure where you would get passion fruit curd, but I'll have a look. Maybe M&S or something does that. But yeah, definitely great. I really like this month's Bake Off box. So yeah, only a month to go to the next one, and the next one is going to be interesting because they're not telling you what is in the box, because it's going to be some sort of bake. I'm hoping, believing that it might be a technical challenge, but it's basically going to be something from the Great British Bake Off, since that's starting again sometime in September. So the September Bake Off box will be something from the Great British Bake Off show. So yeah, I will see you in September for that.